everybody. Welcome into this episode of the Transform Recruiting Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Owens, and with me today, I've got Landon Ziemke. Landon, welcome in, man.
Hey, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this podcast too. I'm really glad you're starting it.
Yeah, there's not enough people talking about what the future could hold and what we can do about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Apparently LinkedIn wanted it when I posted it up. So yeah, I'm happy to be doing it. So let's give everyone kind of your background so we can understand where you're coming from. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. And I'll try to keep this, somewhat short because I have kind of a long and winding path as to how I got to where I am today. I started my career in sales initially, selling consulting services, and then moved into the staffing world a little bit later. First as an account manager, and then moved into recruiting. Through all of that time where I was, selling, hitting the phones, making offers, all those kind of things, I was always the systems and process nerd in the room, and I couldn't help myself. In fact, I think I bothered my managers sometimes because, they'd be like, "Okay, you're at the whiteboard again. Like, go make calls." I'm like, "No, we got to."
there.
We have to optimize this process because it's taking us way too long to submit candidates, and so I just was drawn to it. So had an opportunity to start to get into the world of technology directly myself when I joined a firm that was a little bit smaller, and I could wear a lot of hats, and I knew that they were implementing Salesforce, and Salesforce was a tool that I'd wanted to get my hands on for quite a while, and so I knew that if I took that lead recruiting role, I could probably raise my hand and run that project. And so I got the role, got into the company, and kind of day one said, "Hey, is anyone running this project? Or what do you want to do with this project?" They're like, "You can have it. We don't want it. Here, it's yours. Congratulations." And so I took and ran with that project, and was very successful with it. If I can have an egotistical moment there, it was a situation where it was going poorly, and I was able to kind of herd all the cats and bring it to a point of success. And inside of that, started to get my chops around admin work and more technical work. And then also at the same time, developed a little product. I don't know if I've told you this, Brad, but developed a product called WhizBang, which was a sales note-taking app. And so this was before, and timing's everything, right? So this was before Siri and Alexa, all the voice technology that we're so accustomed to today. It really hadn't taken off at the time. And so the idea behind this tool was that you could leave a sales meeting or recruiting meeting on site somewhere, jump in your car, call this number, and then it would ask you questions that you would pre-program to ask yourself when you left a meeting. And it would then voice transcribe those responses. And then when you got back to your desk, there would be this transcribed conversation sitting in your email inbox that then you could
how fun is that?
use to follow up. So I think it's funny. I just had a client the other day ask for basically that, and so I'm like, maybe it's time to brush that off and do something
That's
with
awesome.
it. But it was ahead of its time. In that we couldn't get the voice transcription to be accurate enough for it to work, especially in challenging environments, like if you're driving a car. So
Sure.
I think we could do it today. But in any case, had the opportunity to go through kind of a full life cycle technology build with that. Just moonlighting though, that was just totally on the side. Me and a developer working at night, weekends, learning. So had the opportunity to get in Salesforce stuff, had the opportunity to do that on the side, and eventually crossed the pond. So got out of sales and recruiting role into product management and project management, and and had a little stint with Optum or United Health Group, which is a very, very large organization, Salesforce customer, I know. And was there for a little period of time, and then went and jumped into the world of consulting to help implement Salesforce for a property management company. So stepped outside of the industry for a minute. I was there for about a year. They were a venture funded company that ran out of money, or at least ran out of enough money to pay contractors. And so, small world. I had actually placed the CTO there as a recruiter, and I had placed him twice in his career. And so he and I were buddies. And so he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, everyone else has to go now. I've gotten you a few more weeks, and but after that, you gotta, take off." And so I told him that I had this idea for what is now Helpstone, which is my current company. And I had started again, kind of working at night, working on the weekends, doing some sideline stuff that aligned with this idea I had. And I said, "Hey, I'd like to bring this to life. The projects I'm working on here are critical. You know that. Could we do like halftime, and then I could launch my own thing?" And so he said, "Well, that's something that we maybe can do." So I'll go talk to the CFO, get back to you. More critically, I needed to go talk to my wife and get her buy-in.
It's a family decision.
Yeah, it is. So in any case, thankfully the CFO and my wife both said this was a go. And so from there, went and started to pursue my own clients, as well as, doing this consulting work on the side. And had my first client after like 9 days. And what was really poignant at the time, or what sold my wife at least, was that I started doing cold outreaches, describing to people what I was trying to, what I was intending to bring into the world. And I got like 80% return rate on those outreaches to cold relationships. And so I'd been in sales and recruiting long enough to know that unless you're, putting your finger on the pulse of something that's real, you're not going to get that kind of response. And so it gave me the confidence to take that jump. And so from there, really, initially we worked on job science customers. That was our initial push, and then quickly got into working with other ATS providers, Talent Rover, Target Recruit, and then came across the idea of just using Salesforce natively as an ATS. And that's the idea we've been kind of riffing on, ever since we did our first project there, which was probably about 3 years ago when we did our first project to help a company who had formerly had Salesforce on the recruiting side. They'd used all sorts of ATSs on the sorry, I say on the recruiting side. They had Salesforce on the sales side of things. They'd use all sorts of ATSs on the recruiting side, Nimble, Bullhorn, Google Hire, spreadsheets, all the things. And decided to bring it all under one umbrella inside of Salesforce, and do that without an ATS overlay. And it was very successful, and to this day is very successful, and has allowed them to grow and scale massively as a company. And really is a reason they've grown. No, probably not, but it's
we'll take it. No.
Yeah, we'll take it. So it's worked well, and that sparked the idea of that being a really good path for companies. So yeah, I guess I can go more into the history of Helpstone, but I think we're here to talk about other things as well. But yeah, we've as I started the company, of course you can do anything, right? When it's greenfield when you're starting a company. And so we decided to focus only on the staffing and recruiting space. And we decided to focus only on Salesforce. So have had other ideas over time, especially as we started, about, okay, let's focus on other technologies, or perhaps other industries, that kind of thing, but really have done very little of that. We've been very focused. So it's kind of, we've just been marinating in this world, both from a technology standpoint and industry standpoint, ever since we started. So
Nice. So you've
yeah.
been seller, you've been recruiter,
Yep.
you've been designer, you've been an architect, you've been an implementer. You've done a good amount of things. So you've seen it from a bunch of different sides. So when you look
Yes.
at the industry as a whole now,
Yeah.
what in the world are we dealing with right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this, this question. And I guess I'm kind of always thinking about that question, right? So I think that there's several things that came to mind as I was preparing for our conversation today. But I think that the overall piece that really, I think, glues it all together is that I've seen a huge lack of what I would call technology fundamentals inside of staffing firms.
That's a new
So,
term. All right. Fundamentals. What are the fundamentals?
so data that agrees with itself, and architecture that's simplistic and something that you can report against. And this is a big one, is having people actually use a technology that's set up. There's huge problems with that. And it's of course, it's being more on the technology side. For me, it's frustrating because there's all this cool stuff that gets set up and doesn't get used a lot of times. And so I definitely want to riff on that as well as kind of its own topic. But yeah, I think that it's really easy to get swept away in looking at the shiny objects, or being attracted to the shiny objects when it comes to technology. And so I've thought about this a lot, and I just listened to a podcast uh, by I don't know if you ever listened to Art of Manliness, Brad, but it's a
I've
heck
heard of
of
that one.
a podcast.
Yeah.
He talks about all sorts of things. But one that I listened to recently was titled "The Future is Analog," and and I thought that it was fascinating. And we've been swept into this idea that the future is digital. And do I think it is? Yeah, I think it is. But I would also say that COVID put that to the test.
Hmm.
And education, well, it worked sort of with technology. It didn't really, right? There were huge deficiencies when it came to education.
Yeah.
Um,
The
uh,
poor kindergartners. First
yeah,
experience of school.
no kidding, no kidding. When it came to retail, which for years we've said retail is going away. Well, guess what? As soon as those stores reopened, people started coming back.
Hmm.
It was not hard to get people to come back to the stores. Um, so I think that well, certainly technology is important, and it's what I live and breathe every day. There is this people component to it that I think is many times undervalued, and is something that really, if we can harness the people side and kind of bring those analog and those digital worlds together, I think that's where we'll really see value going forward.
Sure. So these technology fundamentals,
Yeah.
I am kind of seeing the same things as you of, there's no focus on one single anything. There isn't.
Hmm.
There, while you have to at points just get things done, and that means having to put butts in seats and make phone calls. I mean, that's just has to happen.
Hmm.
Um, but when you give people that autonomy to just, hey, make these phone calls, they're going to have the same autonomy with the technology that they use. They're going to open that Excel spreadsheet because it's easier, because they don't have to learn your system. They're going to put things just in their notes app because that's what they
Hmm.
have.
Right.
What are you seeing as kind of the first step to solving this technology fundamental problem?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big things is making sure that the technology that's built is actionable. And what I mean by that, and one of the things we do with a lot of clients is help them get out of spreadsheets, and even the ones that use technology, you know, well, I would say, are still using spreadsheets to
Hmm.
manage a scary portion of their business.
Yeah,
And
top firms
so,
in the world are
yeah,
still doing that. Like the
yes,
majority of their business. Yeah.
yep, yep. And so, I think about one client who had a really elaborate spreadsheet to track where they were at with candidates currently. That were currently pursuing open roles,
Hmm.
um, and they had in that case Talent Rover implemented. They had an ATS. They kind of sort of had all the data they needed, but they were still using the spreadsheet to manage that process. And more tactically, they were using it in their morning meetings. And so rather than opening up Salesforce every morning, or any database, I guess it doesn't have to be Salesforce. I mean, it's a world I've chosen to live in, but whatever your ATS is, rather than opening that up and saying, where are we at currently with all this stuff, with these candidates in this process, they're opening up a spreadsheet every morning. And so with them and many other clients, what I've done is I've focused on those kind of things and said, okay, what would it take to put together a dashboard, to put together reports, to put together a way to visualize that data and then interact with it inside of a meeting. And that's when you start to win that game, because then as you're preparing for that as a recruiter or a salesperson, and you know that morning meeting is coming up, you're not going to a spreadsheet to update the stuff. You're going to your system of record to update the stuff. And then that creates that kind of social pressure and accountability to actually input that information. And so it's doing that. And again, we've done it successfully with many companies, and it's really rewarding. I remember sitting in one of the first clients that we ever signed. I remember sitting in a morning meeting with them, watching them go through the Kanban board that I'd put together for them, for their candidates and process, and it was like, warm my heart,
Hmm.
because they used to do it on a whiteboard, and very
Yeah.
visual, great, but then they're always like, okay, did we update the system or not? And you kind of get to this place where whatever system you're using um it ends up being like an administrative afterthought or something
Yeah.
that's kind of another task to do, rather
Yep.
than it being a tactical tool to move things forward.
Yep. No, that's a good point. I mean, if you make it a mandate from the top of, hey, this is what we're going to review, they're not going to
Yes.
be the ones that did an update.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
change management thing is a big deal for this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I guess the other example, and this has a lot of teeth, so you got to be careful with this kind of thing. But even tying like commission to
Ooh.
getting let's say an opportunity through to a closed status, or having there be validations in place that, hey, this information has to be in before you can make money off of this. Again, people pay attention.
Yeah,
And
they do. Start messing with how I make money. I'm
yeah,
listening now.
yeah, exactly. So and like I said, you have to be careful with that kind of stuff, but at the same point, you don't want kind of this shadow system of spreadsheets and post-it notes and whiteboards, that you're trying to like translate into your main system all the time.
Yeah, I actually said this on a recent recording, so avid listeners will know. But when we have these conversations with top firms in the country and abroad, we recently had a conversation where they were going through the same sort of things. They had data everywhere. They didn't really know where it was. Their reporting wasn't accurate. They couldn't forecast their business. So we went through this exercise with them of, all right, let's sit beside the people that are doing the work. Let's figure out where all this data actually lives first, because if we don't know where it is, we can't do anything with it.
Right.
And at the end of this process, we came up with kind of this map of where everything was. And the IT leader that was involved in this, like top C-level leader in IT said, "Oh wow, I didn't know we had that much data coming in from all these places." I
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just an amazing exercise. So
Yes.
yes, I'm with you. I feel like if we can get a hold of one, where is all of our data?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And then why is it there? Is
Mm-hmm.
there a purpose to this being there? Is it just because this thing's not easy to use? Well, then cool, we can figure that out. But
Right.
you can't do this from your, I mean, I hate the term, but you can't do this from your ivory tower. You have to go
Mm-hmm.
sit beside people and
Yep.
figure out how they're doing it, or at least have a team that's going to go do it.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, that I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of people get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that that leads into, and again, kind of there is this theme that you'll hear through everything I say here, but it does lead into making sure that you have the right people in place to drive your technology and process. And so one of the things that we do and we encourage our clients to do, when we're not in the room, is to be a watcher at the wall for new spreadsheets or new ways that data is getting tracked. That's again outside of the source of truth. And so to go, okay, let's not spin up another spreadsheet. Like, let's add one field and a report and track this where all the other data is, right? And so it's having that like in the moment tracking of like, hey, let's not do this. Let's not perpetrate that, or perpetuate the issue. And then and I think more broadly, you need people to help drive change a lot of times too. And of course, we're in the business of change. Most of the time when we're hired, there's change happening. But man, people are critical inside of that. And if you don't have the right people in place to help actuate the change, you might, in some ways, you might as well not do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like they aren't going to find those people that are actually doing this day in and day out. You need a third party perspective to say, hey, uh, you all might be missing something over here. And I saw it this way, because they wouldn't be where they were if they had some outside perspective coming in and looking at this thing.
Yeah.
Or someone like a Landon on their team that says, we could do better at this kind of stuff. Listen to those people.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, because I was going to say, I think it's both, right? Because I think that there's one thing for an outsider like myself to come in and go, hey, you should be doing it this way, or you should be thinking about this. And another thing for there to be internal pull, hopefully by a leader, to say we are going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need both. I haven't seen it be very successful if you just have one or the other.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up the episode by giving you your dream: unlimited budget, unlimited people, unlimited resources. What would you create, change that would affect this industry for years to come?
Yeah. Well, I'm working on it right now.
There you go.
It goes back to this fundamental piece. I'm a really big believer in platform centric technology build. So,
Sure.
and it's the reason again that I'm a Salesforce guy, is that there's so much you can do with that one platform. Um, the problem still persists today that there are way too many platforms or individual pieces of software that companies are using and trying to like lace together to have it all work well. It's complicated. I mean, I was just looking at an architectural diagram the other day of a new client that we're potentially working with, and it's there's a lot there, and for that to all work well together, it's tough. It's tough, um, if I had all the money and the budget in the world, inside the next year, I would finish off all the product build I want to build around creating a la carte plug and play tools for the Salesforce ecosystem to help drive recruiting and sales and staffing. So we're in the process of that. We built a resume parser and viewer about a year ago that came on the market called Parsley. And We're currently in the works, and it actually just got accelerated through a partnership deal that I'm still working out, so I can only say so much about it. But we're working on a time tracking tool now. Again, a plug and play, a la carte. If you need it, you can get it. If you don't need to get it. Type of tool that allows for time tracking for contractors, which I think will be a huge win. There's several other tools that we want to build as well. Things like a great connector to LinkedIn Recruiter, a really great connection and easy setup job board and application process, and then onboarding. Onboarding is a big topic right now. We're involved in multiple deals right now where we're trying to automate onboarding, make it quicker and easier, especially interestingly, like travel nursing as an example. There's an incredible amount of paperwork you need to go through to get those people onboarded, and usually it's going very, very fast. And so, again, creating a discretionary tool that you can choose to say yes to if you need it, and you don't need to add it if you don't need it. And so, just creating all these tools that plug into this very, very dynamic open Lego set of a platform in Salesforce to help create that flexibility going forward for companies to grow. And I guess the only other thing I'll add to that um, is that there's a shift right now in some companies from a very candidate centric market to more of a sales and marketing centric market. And so a lot of times firms have when you were just focused on candidates and like that's the only thing, it's easy for those sales and marketing muscles to atrophy a bit. And so what I think is awesome about again Salesforce is that you can shift really quickly into that mode and pursue new business through business development and marketing efforts much more easily than a lot of tools out there. So anyway, that would be what I'd love to bring to the world.
Nice. I liked your point there about adding on these things so that you can grow. It's
Hmm.
not, you don't have to buy it all up front. You don't have to be all right, this is the perfect system for us. We're using it for everything. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's just not how it's going to work.
No,
Uh,
not reality.
yeah. So I love it. All right. So Landon, you gave a lot of good advice here on what people should be doing with their data. I mean, at the very basics is what we're
Hmm.
really talking about here. So,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
do you want people to find you if they have additional questions or want to continue the conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. You can find me at helpstone.io, not .com. It won't get you anywhere. So helpstone.io. And also you can look at our products at parsley.io. So it's PARSLI.io.
Perfect. All right. Well, Anna, really appreciate the perspective. Thanks so much for coming on. If you listeners would like to hear a little bit more about this podcast and what we're digging into, you can listen at transformrecruiting.com. If you got any sort of insight, like to be a part of the show, or just want to talk, give me an email. It's hello@bradowens.com. Thanks so much again for listening. We will see you on the next one.